Hello everyone, welcome to Frost's Corner. I am your host, Frost. Now, this is going to be a temporary model, and of course, I'm using a voice. That's all I can say. Um, just to try something different, be like a half-ass VTuber, something like that. Anyways, so I'm making this video because I've been trying something and I want to try something a little bit different. So what I plan to do is I'm going to use this new VTuber studio thing I have, and I'm going to make short videos that were essentially going to replace my older videos, which were Your Toradora is overrated. Used to be, which is now Your Toradora's extended warranty, and I was doing a section called This Week in Blogging. And I might continue to do that with this avatar. I'm not sure yet. However, I think that rather than covering multiple topics until I get more used to, I don't know, well, first of all, this program. Second of all, I want to get into the groove of things before I actually decide to, actually get more comprehensive. So when I put these out, I'm going to do one topic at a time. Kind of in an attempt to, I guess, get my feet wet. And I'm going to be presenting posts from Tumblr using the above little thing there. It's a whiteboard, something. Right now it's just apparently it's the city of Texifornia, which I'll probably change, but it is a pretty scenic view from sometime in the early 2000s, back whenever there was peace and prosperity in this now rotten city. Anyways, so yeah, we're going to kind of do a this week in blogging type thing, except as a adorable little cat girl or wolf girl. I'm not sure which of the two it is, honestly. Hopefully by the time that I get my feet wet enough, I can actually start, well, I want my own avatar, so hopefully I can do that. And for the sake of the fact that I also don't have the people's permission to share this necessarily, I've blurred out their names while leaving the context available so that people can understand what's going on. And it's actually a topic I've wanted to talk about for a few days now, actually. And yeah, let's go and get to it, which is this. Now, I'm going to read this, and so that people can understand what my frustration is. Also, tons of people telling on themselves when somebody pointed out the double standards on how games journalists responded to Baldur's Gate 3 having bare sex and nudity versus literally any Japanese game, having TNA, and the response was, well, all Japanese games are inherently perverted and sexualize minors and pander to pedophiles. Normally I'd start ranting immediately, but I'm going to actually finish this reading this. Games journos would go to bat for the most depraved shiz as long as it's not made by those filthy slant-eyed devs overseas, quote quote, with zero self-awareness. Pretty sure they would pass around World War II style anti-Japanese posters for the break room at this point, and I don't disagree. Which is when I responded with, and I'm going to have to move this so I can read it. which is my post on the matter, which I would have expanded on, but it would have been a terribly long rant. It's the panda to pedophiles crap that gets me. Short does not and never will uniquely equal child ever. That, and if I had to guess, it comes from a place of spite and possibly xenophobia towards Japan. The spite because of how successful anime as a genre is, and the xenophobia because they hate Asians, because they often do. Which, I'm going to be 100% truthful. As far as I'm concerned, most of the people in the West have a tendency of hate towards Asians, and it is very, very bad. Fact of the matter is, this is something I've noticed with the release of Baldur's Gate, and mouth tracking on this is actually not great. I just now noticed that. I can go, oh, and I have to over-exaggerate my mouth in order for it to be picked up by the camera, which is strange. Although it might have something to do with facial hair. I'm not sure. Anyways. Fact of the matter is, and will remain, that it's not just game devs, or game devs. It's not just games journalists that do this crap. It is actually often the fact that it's antis on Twitter, or now X, I guess, Tumblr, Reddit, it doesn't matter. And it's not just disingenuous, it's actually borderline hateful, if I'm being 100% honest with you. Because the fact is, you only ever see this vitriol typically reserved for games that come out of Japan. Like when Bayonetta came out, everybody was like, oh, male gaze, except the game was literally created by a woman. And I was like, what are you on about? Thing is, and I will never understand it, the hate towards the Japanese. I don't. And everybody's like, oh, well, they pander to pedophiles. No, they don't. Fun fact about Japan is the women there are exceptionally short. Japanese people are exceptionally short. Actually, most men don't get above 5'6" there. It's rare. To be 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", and above, that's a rarity. That's a uniquely American or European thing. Although I guess maybe African as well, but that's beside the point. It bothers me because people have this, have their head so far up their rectum, they just cannot understand how arrogant and ignorant they are. And it's bothersome. It really is. Now, the reason that I protest, and I protest a lot, to the idea that it panders to pedophiles, is pedophiles are into real-life children. Not drawings, not non-realistic pictures, actual, real-life children. That is what a pedophile is. And the reason that I am bothered by the notion that anime or anime-esque games appeals to pedophiles is because they have this tendency to equate being short with being a child. And I'm like, no, that's not how the real world works. There are tweens and teens who are minors still, who are well above like 5'5". Because sometimes children grow fast. There are always differences in the height of people. There are children with gigantism who end up being obscenely tall at young ages. And it's kind of ridiculous, actually. And everybody's like, oh, well, they're the exception to the rule. It's like, okay, sure. But even that being the case, the exception to the rule height-wise here being the average height of a woman being like 5'4", or something like that, ish, is an American thing. The exception would be every other Asian country in existence. And I don't really know how to explain it. It's just sheer arrogance. It's ignorance. And it's, I'm not gonna lie, it's borderline xenophobia. And it bothers me. But if I'm being 100% blunt, I think it's kind of, this whole issue with Baldur's Gate is kind of stupid. And not from the standpoint of we shouldn't talk about it, but from a standpoint of there's so much sex stuff. And somebody tried to make the argument that, oh, well, it's properly placed into the game. And, you know, they actually pan out the story for the sex scenes. And it's like, okay, but why were they necessary? You actually screw a bear. There's a scene where you're giving a dwarf or getting head from a dwarf or a drower or whatever, and it's literally Jerk-Off Simulator 9000. And a little bit of fan service in an anime game, and all of a sudden people are up in arms? It's it is mind-numbing, actually, how insanely stupid these Twitter freaks are. And Twitter freaks, games journalists, as they like to call themselves, and they're not even real journalists. They're people with opinions on the internet who barely qualify as anything more than an opinion talking head. Lest I bring up the fact that a freaking supposed games journalist couldn't beat a tutorial for a freaking game. I believe it was Cuphead. They're like, oh no, this is so difficult. I can't even follow simple basic instructions on the screen. Oh, I'm sorry. You can't even do your job then, is what you're telling me. And it fries my brain. It really does. Now, the whole thing about this whole Baldur's Gate thing is it lays out a double standard that is very, very clear. Which is the fact that these people are not just bad faith, but they don't care. They're like, oh, yes, give me my very rugged, ugly characters boning each other, coming and walking on random anthropomorphic races, railing one another, and giving fellatio and other things, and it's just like, oh yes, I can't believe I get to, have rampant sex with an actual bear. And it's like, oh, well, it's not actually a bear, it's a person who can turn into a bear. So basically they are a bear. You are having sex with a furry, clawed, jawed creature, and because it morphed from being human in shape to being 100% bear, inside and outside in shape, that makes it okay. But jiggle physics is too far. On what planet is that even remotely? Just none of that makes sense. And it's really, really stupid. But to agree with this here post over here on the side, it's true. These people are legitimately xenophobic. They hate the Japanese. They inherently view them as a culture of degenerates and pedophiles. Meanwhile, they stand for bestiality and, bestiality, nudity on the character creation screen, that they is up front and right there in your face, and, other, full-on sex scenes in their games. Full-on bestiality sex in their games. And then, a little bit of jiggle physics on an attractive anime girl, and they're like, oh my god, this is literally for pedophiles. And it's like, the level of stupid that is just mind-bogglingly. I cannot even. Anyways, this has been this week in blogging, at least for the time being. I'm going to keep the title of the series, but this is going to be my current format. Rather than just talking over a blank screen, I'm going to be bobbing my head, wiggling my ears like a cute anime waifu until I make a handsome anime husbando, or maybe I'll stick with an anime girl. I'm not sure. Hopefully the tracking gets better over time and I can actually, do fun stuff with this character and whatnot. So, with that in mind, I hope everyone has a fantastic day. And, yeah. This has been Frost, over and out.